It says, how can I graph large amounts of data? That's your title on the next blank page. How can I graph large amounts of data? Go ahead and make that your title, please. Circle that word graph. That word graph is actually a Latin word. Very old.
What does it mean? Something
like ancient Rome. Where you use the word graph. Please don't yell out at me. You should be writing this down. It means to write. We see it in words like cartography. You don't hear the word graph, but the word graph is in there. Cartography is someone who makes maps. They are writing. You see it in words like calligraphy. That is someone who writes very fancy, like in cursive or in autograph. That is your signature. So the word graph does mean to write. Please write that down. Please graph that down. Evelyn? Kinda. No. As a verb, kinda. I know what you're thinking. We've talked about 3 different kinds of graphs. You should have made one on Tuesday with Miss Jennings. What graph were you making on Tuesday? If you don't remember, you can always look back. I just saw Rylan look back. John, you remember what graph it was?
bar graph?
A bar graph.
I did it because
You just remembered?
Yeah, that's what we're working out.
Yeah. Bar graphs are pretty obvious because they are made up of bars. John?
What? Something is not going to be the author that orange.
I don't know.
Maybe because the AR got orange.
No. Today, we're going to be focusing on a pictograph. There's a good helper word inside pictograph, pict, which helps us know that a pictograph is made up of pictures. Rylan? Perfect. Get out of my brain. Evelyn? The last type of graph is our pie chart. We're not going to mess with it too much in 3rd grade, but you might see it. It's a circle graph. We've seen those in our Scholastic Newses. We're not going to mess with those right now. Today we are focusing on our pictograph. Now I want you to put a squiggle under large amounts of data. Just a little squiggle. Now we collected some data in here. Flip back to the data that you collected.
I don't know where I
We
was.
did some tally marks. What was the question that you asked? It's different than your neighbor. To get some data, what were you trying to find out? Colby, what were you asking about? Uh-huh. Okay, Colby was asking about favorite dinner foods. Madison, what were you trying to find out? Favorite breakfast foods. Huxley, what were you trying to find out? Favorite dessert foods. Heidi, what were you trying to find out? Favorite dessert foods. Does anyone remember about how many pieces of data total you had? How many tally marks total? How many people you asked total? Ish? Gio?
I asked.
Okay. Evelyn, how many people did you ask? Evelyn asked 12 people. So she had 12 pieces of data. Kenzie, how many people did did you talk to and ask?
10.
10. John, how many people did you talk to?
40, but it was so like I don't remember what it was, so I had to do it on the sheet.
That's totally fine. Jalen, how many people did you ask? 12. Ariana, how many people did you ask? 14. None of these numbers are really big. Right?
Like what number?
Those are not super large pieces of data. But what if I wanted to ask that question to every third grader? Or every kid in the school? That is a lot. Stop doing that. So when I graph, gentlemen, when I graph normally, for instance, we're going to do a quick sketch. Draw an L, big L. When you did your bars, you were probably counting up by one vote at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each box that you colored represented one person's vote. Question about that? Okay.
It was either you or Jim that said it, but like it's easier to count if you have extra space.
Yeah, true. That was probably Miss Jennings, but Miss Jennings and I share the same brain.
So you want to put 6?
You can. That's fine. This right here, draw an arrow. This chunk right here is called scale. When you were in kindergarten and in first grade, you counted by ones because that was pretty much all you could do at that time. You weren't working with very large numbers. Just like when we asked just students in our room, we didn't get a lot of data. We only had maybe 20 votes at the most.
So like it's 10?
So our scale is what we're counting by. I'm writing, you're writing. Also on the line, because you're almost a fourth grader. But if I were to ask every student in the school, and instead of having 10 pieces of data, 12 pieces of data, I've got 700 pieces of data, am I going to want to count by ones to make my graph?
No.
Probably not. So think about our number talk this morning. Did our pictograph count by ones?
No.
What did it count by? What were those hearts? Do you remember? What were they worth? Bryson, what were they worth? 3. Make another L. You can put it below. You can squish it in wherever you need to. Instead of counting by ones, what could I count by? Especially if I've got a lot of data, a large amount of data. Gio? Tens. I'm so good at counting by tens. I could count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40. It'd be a great time to practice raising your hand. Kayden? Sure. If I have
What's that W stand for?
millions, I might count by something bigger. Sure, I count by thousands, I count by hundreds. I don't want to get so big though, because if I'm somewhere in the middle, it's hard to graph that. but then I actually have 2,385. That gets hard to put it, right? I know it's in between, but it's hard to place it. Anything that you're good at skip counting by, that's a 10, John. It's a 10, not a W.
But I speak to numbers. What is a big number?
Stop doing that.
Like, what is a big number?
It's up to you.
Like, except for a big number.
So this is our scale. Our scale can change how we think about our data. We saw that in number talks, right? If that one heart was worth 1, that's very different than if it's worth 3 votes. It changes how we think about our data. So far, so good? I can almost guarantee there will be a problem that has a scale that is not 1 on the QT. Don't get tricked.
Like, will be like, how much more students
Yep, and it won't be counting by 1. You'll have to pay attention to that scale. Next blank page. Title it Pictographs. You do not need to draw this graph, but I want you to title it Pictographs.
Why does it say 8 votes?
We're going to talk about that. Next blank page, Pictographs. I'm sorry. You're going to have to survive. I know, I'm sorry. All right, we see a picture. In this case, a soccer ball. What is the scale of this graph? Because it's not 1. What is the scale, Keegan? It is 8 votes. 1 soccer ball is worth 8 votes. How many people voted for basketball? How many basketballs are there? How many soccer balls are for basketball? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 groups that are worth 8. So how many votes are for basketball? Zach? 40. How many votes are for soccer? Work smarter. Work smarter. You already know this many. So just add 1 more. Macklin? 48 votes for soccer. How many votes for tennis?
I'll get it. What?
How many votes for tennis? Carl? Not 24. Is it not 24? Oh, sorry, Carl. My bad. How many votes for track? How many votes for track? Work smarter. You already know 3 soccer balls is 24. What's 4 soccer balls? Huxley? 32. What about baseball? Rylan? 16. All right, let's answer some questions with this data. Which sport did the most 3rd graders vote for? I should see every single hand.
Yeah, I'll give
Which
it that.
sport did most third graders vote for?
Stay at home.
Colby? Soccer. How do you know that most third graders voted for soccer? How do you know that? Colby, go ahead. It has the most soccer balls. And if I count what each of those soccer balls is worth, I can figure out how many people voted. How many people actually voted for soccer? How many people actually voted for soccer? It's on the board. Ariana? 48. Which sport did the least third graders vote for? That's your question. I can see lots of hands. Carl? Baseball. And how many third graders voted for baseball? Are you sure it's not 2? Well, I see 2 softballs. Carl, are you sure it's not 2? Yeah, each soccer ball is worth 8 votes. There will be a question that says something very similar, and I can guarantee an answer choice will be 2. Yes. Is the answer 2?
No.
Don't get tricked. It is not 2. Carl is exactly right. Each soccer ball, we know, is worth 8 votes. So those 2 soccer balls really mean 16 people voted. How many more students like baseball than tennis? How many people like baseball? Let's start there. How many people like baseball? Mackenzie? 16. And how many people like tennis? Keegan? How many? 24. So we want to know how many more people. Oh, that does not say baseball. That says basketball. Sorry. My bad. How many people like basketball? I know. It's tiny. How many people like basketball? Huxley, how many people like basketball? 40. So we've got 40 friends. No, thank you. 40 friends like basketball, over 24 friends who like tennis. How do I figure out how many more? How would I do that? How many more students? Draw this in your notebook. I'm going to start with a bar. Don't do that. This is going to be my tennis bar. I'm just going to put a T for tennis. And I'm going to imagine I lined up all the friends who voted for tennis. Can you imagine that? Yeah. They're like standing in a line. How many of them are there? Not a trick question. Can we? There's 24 of them. So far, so good? Yeah. We can imagine that you're writing this. And then next to it, we have our basketball line. Are there at least 24 people that like basketball? Yes. At least, yeah, there's more than that. So I'm going to make my bar go even longer. Because I know that there's actually 40 people that liked basketball. It was way more. I want to know how many more. This space right here. I want to know this space. How many more? So I can say, I'm going to start at 24, and I'm going to add, John, no thank you, a mystery number to get me to 40. Does that make sense what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I'm at 24 friends. I know I need some more friends to get me to 40, which is my basketball number. Rylan? I could do 40, take away this chunk that I do know, and I'm left with my mystery number.
A way that answer will lead to the answer plus 40.
Yeah. These are not very big numbers. Let's throw them on a number line. Draw a number line. We know that if I'm just trying to find the difference and distance are going to mean relatively the same thing in this case. If I'm at 24, what could be a big jump or a good jump to get me to 40? Bryson? Let's do a friendly number. Huh? 10. 10. If I jump 10, Bryson, where am I at now? 34. Most of you could probably figure out one more jump to do. Carl? 6. Because that will get you all the way up to 40. So, what is that mystery number? How many more kids would I need to stack in my tennis line to make it equal to 40? Equal to my basketball line. Jalen? 16. This mystery number is 16. How many students were surveyed in all? How would I figure that out? How would I figure out how many students were surveyed in all? Colby? Okay, we could do that. I could count the number of soccer balls and then multiply by 8. That'll work. Is there another option I could do? That wasn't the way my brain was going, but it'll absolutely work. Tegan? You can just add up all your numbers. Pick the strategy that works for you. Figure out how many people were asked this question. How many third graders were asked this question? I'll write the number of soccer balls if you want to do Colby's strategy out to the side. 5, 6, 3, 4. I'm really intrigued by Colby's strategy. It wasn't a strategy that initially came to me. I was thinking along the lines of Tegan of just adding these guys up. But I'm interested in that. Let's count the number of soccer balls. 5, 6,
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
So I have 20 groups of 8. I can rewrite 20 into how many tens? How many tens is worth 20? Trick question. Zach, how many tens is 20 worth? Yes, you do. If you had base 10 pieces, how many of them would you need to make 20? 2 tens. 20 is worth 2 tens. Groups of 8. Okay, well, what's 8 times 2? 16 what? Tens. No, not hundreds. I'm counting tens. What is 16 tens worth? What is 16 tens worth, Gil? 160. So guess how many people were surveyed? 160. If you chose to add it up, you would get the same answer. 160 students. That's a lot of data.
150.
That's a lot of data. That would be a lot if I was counting by ones. Can you imagine drawing 48 just for one category? That'd be a lot. Okay.
My study was kind of easy because I know what soccer ball was kind of.
Yeah, it worked out. Sure. Absolutely.
I think numbers even complete numbers though.